All right, let's talk about the Honda 450 RL and the KTM 350 EXC. Some people will say you can't compare these bikes, there's no comparison, but the reality is, like myself, there's a lot of people out there that want to buy a dual sport, and these are dual sports that they look at. Should I get a 350? Should I get a 450? So today I'm comparing the KTM 350 versus the Honda 450 RL. Stick around. And it's true, a lot of people will say you can't compare these two. They're not the same bikes, not the same category. I think they're the same category. We're talking about premium dual sports, right? 350, 450 are all premium dual sport models. I think a lot of people like myself look to buy a premium dual sport, but they're not sure which one to get. So I hope this video will help people decide which one they should get, which one's right for them, right? Let's talk about the KTM 350 EXC-F. I owned the Husqvarna 350. It wasn't the latest generation, but it was the street version in the Husqvarna model. And essentially that's the same bike as the KTM 350. It's the same power plant. There's slight differences like the rear shock, but they're pretty much the same. Even though that wasn't the newest generation and it's not the KTM, it's still essentially the KTM and it's still pretty close. So all the factors are going to be the same when deciding. Whether you get a new generation or an older generation, these factors are still going to be the same when deciding. Okay, it's a 350cc engine, 4-stroke, single cylinder, fuel injected. It's got a 6-speed transmission. The weight comes in at like 250 pounds. Like KTM, they're not real straight with their weight numbers. They're not like Honda where they put wet weights. I think KTM has a tendency to do dry weights, which means no fuel, no oils, nothing, no liquids. When I put a bigger tank on, a 3-gallon tank on my 350, I put some lights on it and stuff. I was essentially at 275 pounds with a 3-gallon tank, and they list it at 250 pounds. I think KTM's 500 is like 4 pounds more than the 350. Weight-wise, the KTMs are the lightest premium bikes you're gonna find. The 350 feels really light. It is a fabulous, fabulous trail bike that's plated from the factory. It's 50 state legal. It's a dual sport that can be rode on the road and off-road, but it is a superb trail bike. It's best at a trail bike. Now, it's not the same as a 2-stroke. A lot of people say, oh, my 2-stroke's better. But for a 4-stroke, this is the lightest weight, best performing, best riding experience you can get. Trail bike with a plate. It really is really nice. It feels really light. The power, you're coming in at 36 horsepower, and that's stock. Now you can get aftermarket ECUs and stuff and you can bump that up some, but the KTM's 350 dirt bike versions that don't have plates, they're over 50 horsepower. They're at 50 horsepower or they're like 52 horsepower. So these 350 engines in a 4-stroke, they're capable of 50 horsepower. The big description of a 350 is that it's 450 power and a 250 package. A 250 package as far as weight and rideability and all that. Now because they're 50 state legal, North America, because of regulations, bumps that down from 50 horsepower down to like 36. Obviously, KTM brings the power down because it's a dual sport and they want it to last a little longer, right? Give you longer service intervals, but it's a pretty spectacular bike for what it is. 36 horsepower is plenty of power for a lot of us. You know, most of us trail riding, you don't need a ton of horsepower. Unless you're racing, then we get it, right? But most of us aren't racing. We're just trail riding and cruising around locally on the streets, connecting trails, that sort of stuff, right? When they detune them, they're making them street legal, they're making them last longer, and they're meeting regulations. The service intervals on this is, they want like 600 miles and they want you to service, change the oil and stuff. I think detune them allows you to go longer than that, but you can do 1,500, 2,000 miles easy if you use good oil with the KTMs. Price-wise, the 350 they're like $12,000, 12 and a half. They're even higher in some places. It depends on where you're at, but in the United States, I think the cheapest you're gonna find is like $12,500. Brand new. I own this bike. I really liked it. It's a great trail bike. It feels really light. It's very manageable, so it makes a great, great trail bike. Great trail bike. It does need more revs. It likes to live higher up in the RPMs. You get more power out of it higher up in the RPMs. So that's one thing about the 350 is that's different than my riding style is you want a lot of revs in it. You want to be zinging it a lot to keep that power up and that engine power the way it needs to be. It just likes to run that way. It's not a slow tractoring, a lot of torque down low. It's a very linear power curve. It's more manageable and it doesn't wear you out like the other big bikes. All in all, it's a fabulous bike. It has lots of pros to it. It's light, it's got plenty of power, it's great handling, it's that KTM rider experience. These 350s, they're easy to manage the maintenance on them because they're just smaller bikes, easier to take care of. Let's talk about the Honda 450 RL and then I'll start comparing the two. The 450 RL, it weighs in at 289 pounds stock, and that's wet. It has a lot of weight reduction that you can do to it, and I own this bike too and I ride it now. I did a lot of weight reduction, the exhaust and stuff, taking off some of the regulation equipment. I added a 3-gallon tank because that's what I like and some lights. So after I modded my Honda 450 RL, I am right at 300 pounds. These bikes are great though. It's a 450, it's got more power than the 350. Not much, but it does. Honda stock wise, it comes in at 38 horsepower in North America. And that's detuned 50 street legal. The Honda 450 race bikes, they're up in like 52s, 55 horsepower. So the Honda is capable of 50 something horsepower. You can put ECUs on them and I'm high 40s with a Get SX1 from Moto ECU. Power wise, it's really good. It's not the most powerful. It's more powerful than the 350 a little bit, and it's a little bit heavier than the 350. The way the Honda rides, it has a lot of torque down low. So like you can just tractor around, lugging around with little throttle, kind of lazy riding, which is more my style. Not a lot of throttle, but just giving it gas when you need, and a lot of that torque is there. Price-wise, this Honda 450R comes in at right at $10,000. Now, a lot of people will say, that's a lot of money for a dual sport because there's $6,000 dual sports out there, $8,000 dual sports out there. But if you're comparing premium dual sports, it's the cheaper premium dual sport that's out there because KTM is $2,500 more right off the bat. I think the Honda 450 RL is priced pretty reasonable. It's not the highest and it's not the lowest. Now, what else do you get with the Honda? It's 450 cc's, 4-stroke, single cylinder. The maintenance requirement is the same as the KTM. They want about 600 miles. I use good 7100 Moto oil. I do like 2,000 miles, have no problem with it at all. What is the Honda 450 RL good for? Well, it's a really good dual sport because it's a little heavier, it's a little more stable on the road, it's a little more stable at higher speeds. A smooth running bike because you're not so high in the revs. It's not such a long stroke on it that it makes it vibrate a whole lot. It's probably one of the smoothest riding premium dual sports on the market. With Honda, you're getting that reliability, that known Honda Japanese reliability. You got a great dealer network. That confidence in the dealership network just goes a long way. That nostalgia of owning a Honda. There's lots of pros to the Honda, but what's some cons to it? When you get it stock, the throttle response sucks. And they have it choked up to pass EPA, and like you don't need an ECU, an aftermarket ECU to fix it. That's one way to fix it. You can get an extra flywheel weight, that fixes it. Fixing that problem is worth fixing because ultimately it's a great bike. It's just an awesome bike. Now let's start comparing the two. We talked about how good the 350 is, the KTM 350. We talked about how good the Honda 450 RL is. Let's talk about similarities. The Honda is a good trail bike. It's just not as good of a trail bike as the 350 is. The Honda's a better dual sport bike. It's better on the road and at higher speeds than the 350 is, but if you're looking for a trail bike, the lightest trail bike to ride, the 350 is where it's at. Now, if you're looking for like a dual sport to cruise around with and do more roads and more gravel roads, more fire roads, higher speed stuff without doing gnarly single track, well, the Honda's your bike. Because the Honda's just not going to do good at hard enduro single track like a 350 will. Just that weight alone makes it harder to ride on single track and hard enduro. I feel like the suspension is pretty good on both. I feel like if you're kind of an experienced rider though, you're going to run into the limitations on both. I feel like the Honda suspension's better. stock just gives you more diversity. It gives you more options. It gives you more riding conditions that it'll fit. But if you're an average rider, you're probably going to be fine with either suspension. If you're more of an experienced rider, you're probably going to end up changing or upgrading the suspension on both of them. I feel like the Honda suspension's better, and it'll take less money to upgrade it and fix it, but I feel like some people will still find its limitations. But for most of us, the suspension is going to be good on both bikes. The power is good on both bikes. It's very close. It's just that the KTM 350 is going to be better at trail riding. It's not going to be as physically demanding. It's going to be better at trail riding. It's going to be better at that narrow single track stuff. Just gonna turn easier, more agile, and the power is good enough for a lot of us. The riding characteristics are a little different. You're just gonna chug around on the 450 a little bit more than you are the 350. Be higher in the RPMs. You just run a lower gear on the 350, I feel like, just to stay in that power. Like on the Honda, I can be in third gear and just cruising and giving it a little throttle here and there to make it do what I want. I feel like these are both spectacular premium dual sports. They really are. And which one should you get? It really depends on your riding style, what kind of riding you're doing. The 350 is going to be better for single track, more hard enduro stuff. It's a little lighter, a little less power, but it's close enough. Where the Honda 450 RL is a little better dual sport. It's going to be able to carry some adventure gear with the metal subframe on it, just help all that stuff in general. You know, a little bit more adventure riding. The Honda's just a little smoother, it's a little heavier, a little more power, similar maintenance schedules, and I think it's like $2,000 cheaper. You have to decide what's best for you. And I would really ask yourself what kind of riding you're going to do and what's your style of riding. And if you're doing trail riding and you're putting it on a trailer or putting it in the back of your truck, the 350 is probably the way to go. But if you're kind of commuting a little bit and riding trails a little bit, more roads and more around town, the 450 RL is where it's at. You're going to pay a little more for the KTM. You're going to do a little more maintenance on it because they're just not quite as reliable as like the Hondas are. And I know some people will argue that, but I don't care what people say. Like, KTM does not have the reliability that Japanese bikes do. They just don't. They're a lot better than they used to be, but they're not there yet. But I don't think that should discourage you from buying a 350. I don't think a little bit more vibration should discourage you from buying a 350. The KTM experience is phenomenal. The dealership experience is subpar for me, but that's not for everybody. It depends on where you're at. You could have a good KTM dealership near you that takes care of you and eliminates that whole problem. Hondas can have trouble too. I just feel like it's a lot less work. You know, there's people that have 200 hours on it, 30,000 miles, and the valves haven't moved at all. That's the kind of reliability that you get with the Honda. You just know that with that Japanese reliability that it's going to last. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. Better to just decide what kind of riding you'll be doing, your riding style, and base it off of that, plus your budget. You know, if you're looking to save money, get the Honda. You know, there's some stuff that you gotta do to both of them. My personal opinion, I prefer the Honda. I prefer the cheaper price on the Honda. I prefer the more power on the Honda. And I prefer the reliability of the Honda 450 RL. I like having more power. It fits my riding style much better. Even though it's a little more weight, it's more of a do-it-all motorcycle. The Honda is what suits my needs the most, and I believe it's the best bang for the buck between the 350 KTM and the Honda 450 RL. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Let me know what you're riding. You got 350s, 450s. Some people probably have both of them. They're both fabulous bikes. They really are. But these are premium dual sports, and they're a ton of fun. Let me know what you got down below. Any questions, I'll try to answer them. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys, and I will catch you later.